Do 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 do. Can't touch me. We are live. I'm putting the game on my TV because it is small. Welcome to Missouri Live. I'm in a good mood. I'm very tired. And you heard that twice. Welcome to Missouri Live, everybody. I'm just making sure audio's good. If you've been around, you know me. Make sure audio's good. Missouri basketball's doing what they need to do. And I'm pretty excited about that because it makes my winter a whole lot less miserable than the Phoenix Suns are making me. It is cold still in St. Louis. Still freezing cold in St. Louis, so I still got my hat on. And I still got a jacket on, although I don't have a Cardinal jacket on today. It's just a plain one I wear to work. Welcome all to Missouri Tigers Live. This is Missouri Live. This is episode 8. Hard to believe I've been doing this for 2 months already. And we still got a whole off season. Yay. So, Mizzou, obviously, no games recently. To be honest, not a lot of huge updates for Missouri since the last time we spoke last week. We talked about recruiting. We talked about some of the things that they brought in. But there is some pretty big news in the portal. I'm lying, of course. There is big news. Damon Wilson, the Georgia transfer. The kid's a stud. You know, he didn't get a lot of play. He would have been a starter at Georgia this year, according to all the Georgia people on their 247 sites and all that fun stuff. He had 3 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, handful of tackles for a loss. I'm pulling up his exact. Yep, 6 tackles for a loss. Kid's a menace. He's got 2 years left of eligibility. From the class, he was the number 45 overall prospect when he came out of school. He is the number 5 overall transfer. And for Mizzou, I mean, they're really looking at DNs, man. I think they realized they did not get to the quarterback enough last year. They bring back Zion Young. If Darius Smith is half as good as the coaches were raving about him last year, Darius Smith's a pretty dang good player. And you have Zion Young still. They brought in Nate Johnson from App State. They still got their eye on that Texas State kid, although there hasn't been as much movement on him. And then they brought in Langdon Kitchen from Northwest Missouri State to provide his depth. Like, it's going to be a pretty dang good D-line room. And if Javion Hilson can provide you with anything as a freshman, Mizzou's going to be in really good shape at the edge position. Overall, Mizzou's portal class has been really good. We'll get into that later. I think they've solved almost all of their needs. But Damon Wilson, man, he's one of those kids where if you can bring him in, he's going to play. He's a freak. He's a monster of a football player. I mean, in limited time at Georgia, 3 sacks, 6 tackles for a loss. I mean, that's pretty good. It's pretty good. And I know he's more of like a stand-up linebacker type of thing. I know he's not exactly like a hand-in-the-dirt DN, but Mizzou's going to have pass rushers next year if this all comes together. Now, they are competing with Ohio State, so when you're competing with the Buckeyes for a recruit, you know, you just got to be wary that if he picks the team that's probably going to win the national championship next week, all right, fair enough. Like, you can't get too mad at it, even in this NIL world. And there's on 3 at 247, keep hinting at like this surprise team, and they keep hinting it's an SEC team. If I had to guess, I would guess it's South Carolina, just because of the success they had with Kyle Kennard last year, and having another DN that has a chance to be an absolute freaking stud for him. Next to Dylan Stewart is probably super enticing for the Gamecocks. But, you know, the Ohio State site and the Mizzou sites are both reporting it's probably just an Ohio State-Mizzou battle. And if Mizzou can come out with this one, their D-end rotation, their pass rush rotation, whew, Zion Young, Javion Hilson, if he contributed anything as a freshman, Wilson, Smith, Johnson, it's Ja'Kai Lang. It's pretty promising. I don't know if it'll be interesting to see what Mizzou does in the spring portal, because I still do think they need help at D tackle. I think they've upgraded on defense everywhere. And I know they still got some stuff out for like a couple corners, but I think the one NC State kid didn't end up making his visit. They did bring in Vince Brown. I think they upgraded at corner. I think they've upgraded at D tackle. And at corner, they didn't lose anything. I just think they brought in somebody to add depth to the room. On defense, I think they've done – I'm so sorry. Holy cow. On defense, I think they've done an incredible job over the last few weeks of bringing in guys that will compete for time and compete for snaps and that can play football, man. Safety was a huge concern. They brought in – they brought in a couple safeties. They brought in 3, to be honest: Santana Banner, Mose Phillips, and Jalen Catalon. And as I'm just going into this, on 3, I believe it was on 3, has Mizzou's portal class ranked as the best in the country. Wow, that's amazing, because it's not like Mizzou's taken 50 guys. Now, they've taken a decent amount. They've taken 16 transfers. Like, they're not – and I don't think they're done. I think in the spring they're probably going to try and find another offensive lineman. And I think they're going to try and find a D tackle, because I think D tackle is the only spot on this roster that has not gotten better since Thanksgiving, since they played Arkansas on Saturday. Didn't they? Or was that Black? Yeah, I had to work during it. So since they played Arkansas. It was a Saturday this year. This is the first time they have not. That's the only position that has not improved. They lose Christian Williams. McClellan's coming back. They got some other guys, there, Jalen Marshall and Marquise Gracial, that are looking for snaps, but haven't quite just been there yet. So I think they'll try and attack the D tackle position in the spring. We'll see what happens. If there's nothing there, there's nothing there. But Vince Brown is speaking of portal gathers. Vince Brown transferred from Colorado State. He's a tight end. I'm not going to pretend I know a whole heck of a lot about Vince Brown. He had a couple touchdowns last year for the Colorado State Rams. Colorado State people seem to think he was a decent blocker. I just don't think he'll play a whole lot at Mizzou. I think he's really a depth piece for the tight end room behind Jordan Harris and Brett Norfleet. Obviously, Norfleet will be the starter. So we'll see. Like, it's an interesting pickup. It adds depth. I don't know. There's other intangible things it could add. And maybe I wouldn't be shocked if they brought him in if he is a good blocker, because Mizzou knows their passing game might not be very good next year. It just might not be what they want, what you want from your passing game, because we don't know if Perbula can pass. Obviously Kevin Coleman's a really good receiver. I have all the faith in the world in Josh Manning. I think Jacob Peeler knows what he's doing when he does recruit receivers. So I think some combination of James Madison, Donovan Uglebode, who else is in that room? Sean Terry, the freshman they brought in, but James Madison and a number of these guys, like, something's going to come together and to form a pretty decent wide receiver room. We just don't know how the passing game is going to look with Bo at quarterback. He is more of a running quarterback, so I wouldn't be shocked if you see a lot of zone concepts. I'm so sorry. RPO. I did not sleep at all last night. RPO concepts from the Missouri Tigers this year. Now, the offensive line was another huge concern. They bring back Tollison. They bring back Caden Green. Armin Membu went to the draft. You playing with your toy, buddy? So that hurts Mizzou. I mean, it's good for Mizzou that a relatively unheard of kid out of high school recruiting is now going to – I mean, every time I turn around, Membu's draft stock just gets higher and higher, which is very good for the Missouri Tigers, but not good for the 2025 Missouri Tigers. They bring in Johnny Williams from West Virginia, and they bring in Keegan Trost from Wake Forest. I got to imagine they're looking for one more lineman. And they brought in the kid from Michigan too, but he seems more of like a Connor Tollison insurance option at center. But I don't think all three of those guys will be starting. You need a Logan Reichert or a Javen Richardson or somebody that's been in the program for some time now to come in, eat a lot of snaps and just go on position by position. Like D-tackle we talked about, I still think they need to find a D-tackle in the portal, at least a rotational guy. You have I didn't even mention like Eddie Kelly and all that at DN either. Like D-Ren from Mizzou is stacked this year. It's going to be a really good room. If Mizzou is not good at getting pressure, you need to fire Corey Batoon. Because something's wrong just schematically. I think the Mizzou D-end room is just awesome. Linebacker, they bring in Josiah Trotter. They bring in Makai Gaboyer. I keep meaning to listen to the name, and I just keep not being able to remember it. Those guys are going to provide minutes with Khalil Jacobs. Still no word on Tristan Newsom and Jeremiah Beasley. I think they're really high on I think they're pretty high in their linebacker room. Josiah Trotter in the last week was named Big 12 All Freshman for the West Virginia Mountaineers. So he's a very good player, man. And apparently he really struggled in pass coverage. It's not crazy that a freshman linebacker in that conference struggled in pass coverage. We'll see how he does transitioning to Mizzou's scheme and what Mizzou likes to run. My cats are stupid. They just sit around, and then I go live, and it's like, all right, time to play. Whatever. But I'm curious to see what they do with that 4 linebacker rotation. At corner, we talked about it. They bring in Hall, Washington State. I know they've dipped their toes in the water in some other corners. They still have Pride. They still have Norwood. I'm pretty excited for this. And then we talked about the safeties. I'm pretty excited about this defense next year. I think it has a chance to be really, really good. Can it be elite? Can it carry Mizzou to 8-9 wins? I don't know. It's a lot of transfers. It's going to be a lot of seeing what you have when we get to that point of the season. But I think they have the athletes. I think they even have the guys that have experience and have shown it, and the star potential. You have Big 12 All Freshman and Jeremiah Trotter. You have Jalen Catalon, who's gotten All-American honors or All-Conference honors. Dryden Norwood's not an insignificant bad corner, and neither is Toriano Pride. Pride had issues this year. Marvin Burks is probably only going to get better, and their DN room is pretty loaded. And you add Damon Wilson there. There's no excuse for the defense to be bad and not to get a lot of pressure next season. So I'm very excited for this defense. On offense, we talked about the O-line. Mizzou hasn't really – they went after that kid from Yale, the receiver. I think they tried to get him in on a visit. I don't think he went on the visit because he ended up committing to Stanford, which – dude, if you're going to go to an academic school, just stay at Yale. I mean, for God's sake. Stanford's awesome, but whatever. But they do bring in Kevin Coleman to be their wide receiver 1. It's gonna look weird seeing a wide receiver wearing number 3 in the slot for the Missouri Tigers next year. But hey, it is what it is, man. This portal class that Eli's putting together, I think it shows Eli, for as many issues as I have with Eli on game days, and it's not enough issues to make me think he's a bad coach. I think Eli Drinkwitz is a pretty dang good coach. I think he's a great recruiter. I think he's a good seller. I think he knows. I think he does a great job of pitching the plan. and how you fit into the plan. Now we can talk about, the freshmen that they've lost, like they've lost most of the 24 class. It feels like we can talk about A, B, and C, but when Eli wants to bring someone in and he sets his eyes on someone, he normally does a pretty good job of reeling them in. Obviously they whiffed on Miller Moss. So you're going to hear a lot of people be like, oh, they always wanted Prebula. No, they didn't. They wanted Miller Moss. They also wanted Mendoza, but he picked IU. Or it seemed like, from what I understand, it was like he was teetering. He didn't really know. And Mizzou was like, okay, we can wait and maybe whiff on Mendoza, or we can just go ahead and get Prebula. Like, we have an agreement. Like, let's just pull the trigger on that. And they did, and we'll see how it goes. I know Penn State really could have used him against Notre Dame because they did not look good in goal line situations or short yardage. And that's where he kind of excels. So, hey, man, I'm very excited for Mizzou football right now. I think Mizzou is in the best spot maybe it's ever been. I know they won 10 games in 7, 8, and then they had a 5-star quarterback coming in, Blaine Gabbert. But just all around with the profile they're building, with the exciting stuff that's happening in other sports, like softball is pretty good. Basketball is back on track. I think this is a athletic department that they need to figure out women's basketball because it's just unacceptably bad. Just unacceptable what that women's basketball department program is doing. But anyway, and the football team, has won 21 games in 2 years, and like an opportunity. I'm not going to come out here and predict that they're going to win 11 games again next year. I don't think that's realistic to do, especially when you don't know what you have at quarterback. I believe in the receiving corps, but outside of Kevin Coleman, it's a lot of unproven. Same thing with the quarterback, and the offensive line is going to have 3 new starters. The running back was rated as the 5th most impactful transfer, and the 2nd best running back transfer behind Justice Haynes, who went to Michigan from Bama. So, there's things I'm confident in about the offense, and there's things I'm just not. So I can't come out here and predict 10 wins, but I think they're in line for another pretty dang good season, and that's all you can ask for from Mizzou right now. Keep building. I always like to talk about how there's 18 programs or 20 programs tops, and if you're in the chat and you want to bring them up, that's fine, that can win a national championship. 15 years ago, Clemson wasn't in that group. Yeah, probably being a little too. 20 years ago, Clemson wasn't in that group. Clemson was a good program. They were not in the, they can compete for national champions, or they can win a national championship group. And now, a 12 seed in the playoff and just not even being close to remotely competitive with the top end of the sport has left them just devastated. But they did win 2 natties. What I think Mizzou needs more than anything, and maybe Matt Zollers is this guy, is in order, and Penn, and this is the state Penn State's in too, and I do believe, and I think Drew Aller's fine. I think Drew Aller's a pretty good college quarterback, and he has a lot of tools and he has a lot of size. But what changed Clemson from a pretty good program to amazing? What's changed other programs from they're really good to damn, unless you're Georgia and you can get by with Jake Fromm and Stetson Bennett because you have NFL first-round picks everywhere else on your team. You need an elite quarterback. You need a quarterback that elevates you beyond your team's capabilities, and that's where Mizzou's at right now. And again, that's also where Penn State is. Penn State needs their version of on the field Deshaun Watson or Trevor Lawrence. That's just who they need, and that's what Mizzou needs. They need a guy that, Drew Lock was great, man. He was, but he was still a 2nd-round pick. They need a 1st-round bona fide stud quarterback, I think, to take them to the next level. But that's hard to do, and that'll take time. In the meantime, you have to just kind of be happy with the journey, and journeys aren't linear. This next year might be a step back. 26 might be a step back because 26, you got to play the other half of the SEC. And if I remind you, the other half of the SEC right now includes LSU, Ole Miss, Texas, 3 programs that are just dang good. Tennessee, Georgia, those 26 and 27 schedules have a chance to be pretty brutal. So you better hope Matt Zollers is the guy. And of course, I don't think the the schedules will quite line up like that, because I think eventually we're going to go to this pod system, which I'm fine with. Because I would like to play OU every year. I know OU would prefer to play. I know OU wants to play Texas every year, and Texas wants to play Texas A&M. I want to play OU every year. But talking about Mizzou football, you have to be pretty excited about where they are. The games will come, and we'll see what happens. And that's ultimately what matters in this sport, is the games. But, man, if you can just keep building, we'll see what happens. Because things can go the other way too. And there's a path where things go the other way. So we'll see. Next year will show how awesome of a coach Eli is. Like, if Mizzou can come out and win 8, 9, 10 games next year, Mizzou's got themselves a coach that they should probably give like a long, I know he's already signed through like 2029, but like a long-term contract too. Because Drink is going to be a guy that's going to be here for 20 to 25 years if he wants to, if Mizzou's pretty consistently winning 8, 9 games. That's not going to be easy. It's, Mizzou's never going to be I'm fairly confident in saying Mizzou's never going to be a program where 10 wins or 9 wins is the expectation. When you walk into a season, now there are going to be years where that's the expectation, like this year was. The expectation was 10 wins, and they fell a little short. And with the bowl game, they won 10 games. There are going to be years like that, but more often than not, Mizzou's going to come into the years going with a win-loss projection in Vegas of like 7.5. And if you beat it pretty consistently, like Iowa does, you're going to be in really good shape. And eventually those 7.5 wins become 8.5 wins. And all of a sudden those 8.5 wins become, you push at 9 wins. And all of a sudden, like, you just keep climbing. But what it has to mean though is the last 2 years aren't outliers in Eli's career here at Mizzou. And I don't know if they are. I'd like to think they aren't, because they went 500 and you could see him getting better the whole time. I mean, that 20 team was just a mess. COVID year, it doesn't really count. They beat a bunch of bad teams in close games. So like, it's hard to be like, be too confident in the 20 team and like what that team did. But 21, they were just awful. That 21 team was bad. They got to a bowl game because they squeaked by Florida, and they beat South Carolina at home, and they beat a bunch of bad teams in the non-conference. I think they beat Vanderbilt by like a touchdown. Like, that team was, and that was an awful Vandy team. That wasn't Diego Pavia Vandy. That was awful Vandy. And then 22, the team was like, if you go back and remember that 2022 year, they were close, man. They had a real chance to beat Kentucky, had a real chance to beat Georgia. They had a real chance to beat Florida. Like, you could, there's so many games. Like, if you could just close out 1 or 2 of them, now you're 8-4, and all of a sudden you're really set up for 23. But then 23, they break through, they win 10, 11 games. Last year they break 10. Like, Mizzou, just keep building. And next year might be a step back. It happens. If you're not Bama, you're not LSU, or LSU kind of had step. If you're not Bama, you're not Georgia, you're not Ohio State or some of these programs, you're going to have step backs, and you're going to have down years, and you're going to have really good years. It's up for you to take advantage of your good years. Unfortunately, Mizzou, I don't think, take fully advantage of this year, but that's okay. I'm not – it's not the end of the world. That's a really nice throw by Stafford. God, he's good. So moving on. Guys, thanks for tuning in. Like and subscribe. You can catch us on all your favorite. You can catch Missouri Live, Clemson Live, LSU Live, Bama Live, whoever, on your favorite audio platform, whether it be Apple, Spotify, whatever you like. YouTube. Obviously, you can find us on YouTube. That's where I'm at right now. But like and subscribe, man. Like, there's a lot of people working really hard here. I love doing this Missouri stuff. I can't wait to take the off season as things slow down for me. Working in finance, this is not the easiest time of year. So, just kind of as things slow down, being able to kind of play with this channel and experiment and do some stuff as we head into the 2025 college football season, I'm going to have some fun with. And yeah, like and subscribe, guys. Be here for the journey. This is this Mizzou. There's not a lot of Mizzou places out there. You have Power Mizzou and the Mizzodcast and Rock M Nation and there's a lot of guys out, a lot of Missouri people that do great work out there. And if you're a Mizzou fan, you should go out and if you're not a Mizzou fan, but you're just kind of curious what's going on with Mizzou athletics, you see the basketball team's 13-3. They've beaten Kansas. They're 2-1 in the SEC. It's like, oh, what's going on with Mizzou? The football teams. Come here obviously because I like to think I'm gonna. As this channel grows and I become better at this, I'm going to put myself in those categories of if you want a Mizzou coverage, you go to Power Mizzou, 247 site. You go to Rock M Nation, the SB Nation site. There's the Mizzodcast, which is like the fan podcast side, and there's me, kind of just a rational human being who took 20 minutes to go live after the South Carolina game because I was so devastated because that loss sucked. That was hurtful. Because Shane Beamer's a dork. Anyway, but yeah, like and subscribe, guys. It should be an interesting off season as it continues. So the last thing I wanted to get into, because again, not a lot's happening right now. I'm not going to be on for an hour. I just can't do it. I'm too tired. Clearly, I'm yawning a lot. But what is this Missouri offense going to look like now that we've hit 2025? So, Beau Pribula has never been a passer at Penn State. It's not he can't do it. It's just we don't know if he can do it. He came on in the same year as Drew Aller, and Drew Aller is a pretty dang good college quarterback. He's like Penn State. Again, I keep using the Penn State-Clemson thing because I think Penn State's pretty close to what Clemson was a decade ago before Deshaun took him to the Natty. I think Drew Aller is their Taj Boyd. I think he's pretty good, just not elite. And we saw that against Notre Dame. But what is this offense going to look like? Not sure. I think you're going to see, I think Mizzou, Kirby under Brady Cook. Brady Cook was a decent runner. I think he was decent. I think his designed QB runs, he was not very good. I think especially in 2022, when he didn't see his first read, he tucked it and ran. I think he did a really nice job. I don't think last year or in 23, or especially last year, he did a very good job. Now, part of that was the injuries. But even in 2022, I don't think his direct, they call his number outside of the fake sweep, QB keeper on the 2-yard line. They ran that for a touchdown probably 5 times over the last couple of years. Outside of that, I just don't think he was very capable at being one to hold on to hey, I need to go pick up 7 yards on this QB sweep or QB jet or whatever. I think Pribula will do that a little bit better, which I think opens up holes for Ahmad Hardy to become what he is, which is a freaking stud, man. And I know the Sun Belt isn't the greatest conference in the world, but 1,300 yards as a freshman. I mean, he's got kids at the All-American Bowl committing to UL Monroe because they want to be the next him, and now he has a chance to be an awesome SEC running back. It's going to depend on the O-line. If the O-line is serviceable, which is what it was last year for the most part, and it was pretty good the year before that. It just has to be serviceable. I think Pribula is mobile enough. I think the run game is powerful enough with him, Hardy, and Jamal Roberts to really do some things, to really have a really good run game. What's going to hold them back might be the downfield passing game, and that could come from the quarterback or the receivers. I'm very intrigued by this Mizzou offense next year. I'm not quite sure what it's going to look like. We're going to have a lot of time. Definitely going to be a spring game you're going to want to watch because they're not going to reveal all the tricks of the trade, but it's something you're going to want to keep an eye on because I don't know what it's going to look like. It could be really run heavy, which is interesting for Mizzou. I think they've been really run heavy, but it might be really QB run heavy. Because he didn't bring Beau Pribula in to do nothing. He didn't bring him to sit the bench. You didn't bring him in to sit the bench. So we'll talk about around the sport. We just had the two semifinals. Both basically went how I thought they'd go. I think it was pretty clear Ohio State was the better team in that game against Texas. I thought Texas played better. I thought they would. I thought Texas's defense Texas defense is awesome. Texas is a great defense. So I'm not surprised that Ohio State didn't just bludgeon them like they did Oregon, because Oregon's defense has been kind of more middle of the pack throughout the year. But I thought Texas played super hard, and it was 20. They had the ball down a touchdown with some time left at the 1 yard line, and they ran that stupid toss. Like, that's a call Sark is going to regret for the rest of his career. But no, I think that was a pretty good football game. I think Ohio State's the most talented team in the country. Notre Dame, Penn State was pretty good until it got great. It wasn't what Colin Cowherd said, where it was like a top 10 college football game of all time. Well, no, we had a better game like a week ago with Arizona State and Texas, but that was a dang good football game. And man, Riley Leonard, he's just a warrior. He's just a dang good college quarterback. I don't know if he's an NFL QB. I know some people are trying to make it seem like he's an NFL QB. But more than that, the other thing that I took away from that game, I took away two things. I'm going to talk about both head coaches here real quick. A lot of people are blaming James Franklin for that one. Oh, James Franklin, get it done. And you know what? That's part of the job as a head coach. You're just going to have to eat it when you lose. You just do. Like, Eli's going to eat it when Mizzou loses. Beamer's got to eat it when Carolina loses. It's just the job of the head. It's like being a director of a movie. Like, if a movie's bad, you don't blame the cinematographer. You don't blame the editor. You blame the director. I actually don't think they had a bad game plan. I think Kotelnicki called a pretty good game, considering who they were missing. I think Tom Allen, who just got hired by Clemson today, I think had a good game plan. I just think they didn't execute, and they lost a good football game to a pretty good team. Like, that happens. It wasn't like some of the Ohio State games we've seen with them, or Michigan or Oregon, where it's like, this is clearly the second best team on the. Now, I don't think Notre Dame's as good as those teams, but they're on a great run. So, full credit to them. But I just think you lost a game against a pretty similar team, and you didn't execute. And Abdul Carter was playing through an injury, even though he's such a freak, man. But the other coach, Marcus Freeman, when he got hired, I thought it was weird why Notre Dame hired him, because like a year ago he was the DC at Cincinnati, and he comes in to be Notre Dame's DC under Brian Kelly before 2022, and then Brian Kelly leaves, and all right, what are you doing? And then he becomes the head coach, and it's like, okay, Notre Dame is hiring a coach with no experience, super young, and okay. And that first year they went 8-4, and there was really some big questions. Last year they had a pretty good year. They lost the Ohio State debacle, and then they lost a game to Clemson, but they were still a pretty good football team. But the growth that man has seen as a head coach over the last 12 months, it's been incredible to watch. He's a damn good football coach. He's a really likable guy. He's not Brian Kelly, man. No one likes Brian Kelly. Not even LSU fans like Brian Kelly. He just wins football games, so it's like, good job, Brian. But Marcus Freeman seems like a great dude. And when James Franklin tried to little bro him the whole week, it was weird. And I don't hate James Franklin. I know a lot of people do. I don't. I think he's good for the sport. But man, Marcus Freeman, hats off to him. Ohio State's going to beat him in the national title game. I think it's going to be 27-13. And I don't think it'll be that competitive, just because Notre Dame, I think is a good football team. I think they're a good football team. They're a very worthy team to be in. You put Notre Dame on the Ohio State side of the bracket, or you replace them. I still think Ohio State makes the national championship game. I'm not sure Notre Dame is, but if they had to play Tennessee and then Oregon and then Texas, I don't know if they're still here, but maybe I'm not saying they wouldn't be. And more than that, that's part of the sport, man. Like, you just take advantage of the opportunities you've been given, and some teams do. It's like, you look at all sports. I got a Blues hat. Like, the Blues, like, I got a St. Louis Blues. If you follow hockey at all, the Bruins outplayed the Blues in a lot of games, and that's 2019 Stanley Cup final. And the Blues were in a Game 7, and they had an opportunity to win a freaking Stanley Cup, and they did it. They took advantage. The Chicago Cubs in 2016. Like, when you have opportunities to do things, it's up to you and it's on you to take advantage of that opportunity. Penn State did not take advantage of their opportunity. Indiana did not take full advantage of their opportunity. And I know, they had to beat Boise, did not take advantage of the opportunity. Georgia, like, somebody had to be able to take advantage of it, and Notre Dame did. And Notre Dame's a really damn good football team. I don't think they're the second best team in the country. But that's what happens when you do these tournaments sometimes, and the way things line up. Like, it's not Notre Dame's fault Ohio State lost twice. It's not the College Football Playoff Committee's fault that Ohio State lost twice and got put in that spot. So, but Ohio State 27, Notre Dame 13. Good on Notre Dame. We'll be live during the game, so we'll talk for a little bit during it, and we'll keep an eye on it. But I'm pretty excited for it. We'll see what happens. It's the last college football game of the year, man. I spend my life watching this stuff and listening to this stuff, and I'm pretty excited for the off season and to be able to relax for a little bit. And then around May, I'm going to be like, how many weeks till week 1? We got Texas, Ohio State. So again, so thank you guys all for watching Missouri Live. I know I just went on a ramble about Penn State and Ohio State and Notre Dame, but thank you guys for watching Missouri Live. If Notre Dame winning is not good for Mizzou, by the way, you should be rooting for Ohio State, because Notre Dame loves coming to St. Louis. I mean, Jeremiah Love, for God's sakes. They love coming to St. Louis and taking kids. So, Kyron Williams. Anyway, thank you guys for tuning in. I hope you guys have a wonderful night. Have a great rest of your week. I will see you next Monday for the next edition of Missouri Live. And MIZ. Go basketball team.